Next Chapter Podcasts.
Hi, I'm Michael Goodfriend, executive producer of the Play On podcast series at Next Chapter Podcasts. You know, every one of our series seems to have a theme. If there's one for 12th Night, I would say that the theme is friendship. Most of our cast for 12th Night has worked with each other at some point, and even on this play in past productions. Two actors in the cast, Dan Parker, who plays Sir Toby Belch, and Jordan Barbour, who plays Sir Andrew Aguecheek, were company members together at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and performed together in Christopher Liam Moore's stage production of 12th Night at that theater. I thought it would be nice to bring them together again for a conversation about the play, their work and their experiences together, and what it was like for them to reunite on this podcast series.
This is part 2 of my interview with Jordan Barbour and Daniel Parker.
Yes, Jordan is stepping in and playing Sir Andrew Aguecheek. It must have felt quite liberating for you, Jordan, because Orsino is such a different character. And you know, I have played Orsino, and I remember just feeling like everybody else gets to have so much fun. Orsino is a beautiful role. You get to say beautiful words, but you know, I mean, there's so much fun happening between, especially Sir Toby Belch, Andrew Aguecheek. What was it like for you to go from Orsino into that role?
Admittedly, at first I was, I guess Chris doesn't see me as a handsome leading man type. Because I had fucking played Orsino. And then he said, we want you to play Sir Andrew Aguecheek. And then Tramell was playing Orsino, handsome, strapping leading man of Apple TV's Severance. And so all my insecurities came forth, and I was like, I guess I'm not the handsome leading man type. But so that was my first little reaction. And then I was like, I love Chris and Chris loves me. So I'm assuming Chris sees something in my ability to play Sir Andrew. So I'm going to get over that.
Versatility.
Well, but it's really, it's hard. Being funny looks fun and easy, but it is so hard. Is it not?
Yes.
No, I actually don't agree with that. No, I honestly think the hardest thing about being funny is trust, right? Like the hardest thing about doing comedy is like trusting your fellow scene partners, trusting your director that you're not completely full of it and are actually funny. And once you let that go, you can just sort of like not try so hard and not worry. I think that's where the funny gets difficult, is when you're trying to be funny. So that is hard if you're someone who fashions yourself as a funny person, or you think you're funny, is when you're like enter a space, especially when you're playing a character that's supposed to be funny and you're like, I hope I'm doing funny. So in that regard, yes, it is hard doing comedy, but like the great thing about this now having been, I guess this is technically only the second time I've worked with Chris, but I went on in 12th Night. I went on in Shakespeare in Love. So I've gone on. I had gone on
Shakespeare in Love, which Chris Moore also directed at Oregon Shakespeare Festival
the year after he directed 12th Night. And so I had gone on in 2 of Chris's shows. And then I finally got to work with Chris and a lot of Dan in Book of Will, which was the next year at OSF. And so what was really liberating about it, coming to do this podcast, was that I kind of already knew Chris. Chris already knew me. We knew each other's senses of humor and sensibilities. And then there were all these people that we'd worked with together, Catherine Castellanos, but basically all of my scenes were with Catherine and Dan. And so I got to be in this group of people that I had already known, loved deeply, and had been funny with for years. And so getting to just go into that space, and I think that the hardest thing when you're doing comedy, especially with like new people, is like this weird feeling of needing to like prove that you deserve the part or prove that you belong in that room. And I had already gotten to be in that room with those people my last year at OSF. So I could let that all go and actually just have fun playing the character. There were certainly, elements of, because I I know very well the actor who played this at OSF, and there were elements of, I hope I live up to that. I hope I live up to what the scene was, or I hope I live up to, once you let go of all that and you actually just have fun, you can stop thinking about that. And I actually think the gift of being theater actors, and especially Shakespeare actors, is that one of the thing you do the first day of rehearsal is sit with no staging and just read the play and try and get at the meat of what the play is. And then you sit there for a week without staging it and rip it apart and get under it. And so it kind of lends itself to naturally going into a podcast format, because essentially we're just doing that first week of what a Shakespeare process is.
It's like the first read after a week of table work, or
kind of. And you get to go and fix your takes. You get to go, and if you didn't like the way you read something, you can go back and change it.
This is Michael Goodfriend, executive producer of the Play On podcast series. I hope you're enjoying this conversation with the creatives behind the scenes. To listen to the full interview, join the Play On supporting cast for just $5 a month, which by the time you hear this might be less than you'll pay for a gallon of gas. You'll get in-depth interviews featuring some of the most brilliant artists working today. You'll also enjoy ad-free episodes of the Play On podcast series. Subscribe today for $5 a month. Join the cast. Go to ncpodcast.com and sign up today. Thanks for listening.
Next Chapter Podcasts.